Before we start this video, a large thank you to Yuz H1, Juju, a name I am incapable of pronouncing. Thank you very much for the support, my friend. Balance, another name I am incapable of pronouncing. Thank you again for the support. Sark2422 and Rudisu for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And, as always, a massive thank you to Halo Burner and Ryan Bellin for their continued support to the channel this month on Patreon. It is greatly and sincerely appreciated, gentlemen. I hope you enjoy the video. Hello guys, I realized after all this time I never covered doors, as a nice person in the community told me. So we're going to do doors, and for those of you who are asking about ladders, I promise, don't worry, we'll get to that. I'm just going to explain why it could be problematic for some people. So, I have this door object here, and I'm going to go ahead and add an animator to it. So I'm just going to put this up here like so, and then I am going to go to the window tab, yes I believe it's that, and then go to animation, and we're going to click animation. So we're going to create animation for it. First I will create a clip like that, and that will automatically give us a controller, or it should. And then I'm going to call this new animation door underscore open underscore one. I'm going to put it in my animation objects folder. So if I hit the record button here, you can see if I try to rotate this, you might get an effect like this. But if the object is set up properly, generally speaking like doors and windows and such, then the person probably made it so it's pivot points. We change this to center to pivot. Now your rotation will go from the pivot point, and now it's easier to animate. Might not be the case for all doors, but a lot of people who set these objects up do this in such a way. So I am going to basically have it open here on this frame, and we've done enough object animating here. You know how it goes. That looks cool. Now I want to go to the last frame where it's already open, and I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to click, or type rather, Control C for copy. Now I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to go up to door open, click create new clip, and I'm going to call this one door underscore opened 01. Now why am I doing this? Well, we're going to put a single frame, and it's going to be, we're just going to Control V. It's already in the open state, like so. Basically, we're going to make it so if you load in and the door was open previously, we're not going to play the open animation, we're going to play the opened animation, so you won't see it actually swinging open if you happen to go in next to a site of grace, next to a door. So I'm going to untick loop time on both of my door animations. Then we're going to go to the controller here by going to the animator window. I'm going to create a new state called empty, and I'm going to set this as the default state. So we don't need to make any transitions for our door animations. They're fine as they are. I'm just going to put them up here like so. And now I'm going to go back into the game, and I'm going to add a door interactable script that we don't have made yet. Let's go ahead and create an ad. And then I'm going to put this inside my interactables folder. And as is per tradition, I'm going to erase the start and update functionality, and I'm going to drop in my namespace. Mine is SG. I'm going to make this derive from the interactable class, which means it's going to be a network object automatically. And then I'm going to give this a header. I'm going to call it status, or status, however you prefer. I'm going to make a public network variable of type bool. And this is going to keep track of if the door has been opened. So we're going to call this isOpen. We're going to set that to equals a new network variable. Default, it's going to be set to false, and the read permission is everyone, and the write permission is owner. And now right below that, I'm going to make a public string, and I don't think about it, I think this will be private. We're going to call this door ID, and this is going to be the ID used to see if the door is open or closed in your save data. Let's make it private. It doesn't need to be public. If you want this to derive from other door classes, or have other door classes derive from this, I should say, make it protected. A serializable field, there we go. And right below that now, I'm actually going to make some comments real quick just to show you what we're going to do so you can get a rough idea just for all the variables anyway. So we're going to make an object in the next video for not being able to open it from this side. Very famous in Souls games, cannot be opened from this side. We're going to make a requirement in this video for keys. You don't have to have a requirement on every door, but it can be optional, or even items. So maybe like you have to have a weird thing in your inventory, like there's some mysterious fog wall or something. We're going to make the animation set, obviously, and the sound effects. So first, let's start off by making a header for the requires item, or key. And I say item because you can make it require anything specifically. It can be like some kind of weird doll or token or trinket or an armor piece or a sword or whatever. But let's make a private bool requires keys equal to false. And then I'm going to come down here, and actually I'll call it item because I just told you Basically, it can be any item. So let's just call it item in case you want to use something besides a key. Now, serializable field, I'll make in private item variable here. So this is going to be an item variable. And we're going to say item required to open. And right below that, we're going to make a header for the animations. And we're going to have the open and opened animation variables here. I'm just going to change requires key to requirements as well, because as I just said, it can be any item if you want it to be. So serializable field, private animator. So we can drag that in. And then we can do a serializable field, and we're going to need 2 strings here for the animation sets. So private string open door animation, and then private string opened door animation. All right, looks good. And now under our sound effects, we're going to go ahead and get a clip, an audio clip that we want to play. Now, obviously, depending on your door, you might want wood scraping against stone or some weird metallic creaky noise, whatever you need. So I'm just going to put private audio clip door open sound effects or opening sound effects. Now, we only play this if we play the open door animation, not the opened animation. But I'll get to that. Okay, so right below all of our variables, let's start by doing the override network spawn. So this is called one time when the object is spawned. Now, let's say door ID is equal to, and this is how I generate a custom ID, by the way. I use this for Nephalite as well. It's weird saying Nephalite now, not Nephilim. We're going to say gameObject.scene.buildIndex plus, I'm going to leave a little space there, plus the gameObject.name. So what this does is if you have the object in an additive scene, it will give the ID, the scene build index, plus the name of the game object. So providing that your doors in the same scene are not named identically, then you'll be fine. This is optional. Obviously, you can put in the name or the ID manually, but I like doing this because I have a lot of doors and I don't want to keep track of which ones I've given which ID. So next I'm going to say, if we are the server, we want to check and see if the door has already been opened. And we're going to do that by analyzing our save data, which means we need to keep track of something in our save data. So let's go over to our character save data, and we're going to make a list. We don't need a dictionary. A list will do. You can keep a dictionary if you'd like, and then save the status, and defaultly it can be at false. But what I just do simplistically is just keep a list, and if the door is on that list, you know that we have opened it in a previous playthrough. So basically, we're just going to check and see if the list contains the string. If it does, we're good. So we're going to make a header called doors, a public list called doors opened, and then we're going to initialize that list as a new list down here on character save data. And then we're just going to basically iterate through the list and check it out. Okay, so if we are the server, that means we're the host. We're going to do a for loop. Really don't like this autocomplete. I miss the old Visual Studio. Do an int I, and then we're going to iterate through our, We're going to iterate through our world save game manager dot instance dot current characters save data, and then we're going to go doors opened and dot count. Now the doors opened I should never be null, but I'm going to check for it anyway because it's good practice to always check for null entries in your for loops. So we're going to say if it equals null, somehow simply continue. Otherwise, we're going to say if the ID of doors I is equal to if doors I is equal to our door ID, then we know we've opened this, and we can say this door is in fact already open. So we're going to say is open.value true, and if you want, you can just say break there. Okay, now we are going to say is open dot on value changed plus equals, and now we need to make a function. So when we're calling is open, we want to play the open animation, but only if the door has basically been open after the fact that it spawned. And I'll get to how we're going to do that. So we're going to do private void on is open changed, and we're going to say bool old status and then bool new status. Okay, so what we want to do here now is also run a function, check if door is already open. So basically this is going to be called obviously one time when the door is spawned. And this first subscribes to a function on spawn. So if the door is open, we're going to play an opening animation. Cool. And if the door is already opened, then we're going to play the opened animation. And we're going to do this by not actually playing the animation on is open changed, but we're going to play it on a server RPC, or rather a client RPC. We're just going to simply do some stuff here on is open changed, but we're not going to play the animation. and I'll show you what we're going to do. So let's do a private void check if door is already opened. So again, let's say you join my game and I've opened this door, then is open is already going to be true. So we're going to play the opened animation there. So I'm also going to call on network despawn and unsubscribe from is open changed just by doing the minus equals here. And now on is open changed, all I'm going to say is if is open dot value. We're going to open up some curly brackets here. We're going to say interactable collider dot enabled is equal to false. And then I'm going to put some pseudocode for the next video. Disable the cannot open from this side collider on the other side of the door, if we have that for certain doors. And down here under check if door is already opened, we're going to do a if is opened dot value. And alternatively too, you can do if is not open return and then do your code below that if you like that more. We're going to say animator dot play, and then we're going to play the opened door animation. So it's just going to skip right to the frame where it's opened, basically. And also we're going to disable the interactable collider. Okay, cool. Now, I'm also going to paste this pseudocode. Disable cannot open from the other side, but again, that'll be next video. Private bool, we're going to say player has key. This is going to be a check, and we're going to make it require a player manager for a player. And what we're going to do quite simply is we're going to say bool has key is false initially. And then we're going to do a for loop, and we're going to iterate through the player's inventory, and we're going to look at every item they're currently carrying. And what we want to do is check specifically if they have an item with an ID that matches the item ID of the item required to open the store. So first we'll do a check, and if player's items inventory I is null, simply continue. And then we're going to say if player's inventory items .item ID is equal to, we're going to say, what do I call this? Item required to open .item ID. We're going to say has item is equal to true, or has key is equal to true. Hi, Future Seb here. I forgot to put a break in that for loop, and I also forgot to put a break in that for loop if the door ID matches above, so please go ahead and do that. I'm going to do a post video. Okay, so let's make a private void. I'm going to call this open door server RPC, and I'm going to make this say server RPC above here, and then we're going to copy that and paste it. We're going to change server RPC to client RPC, and open door server RPC becomes open door client RPC. Okay, so let's also make this require ownership equal to false. So if your friend joins the world, they can open the door too, unless you don't want them to do that, in which case just don't allow it. So we're going to say if is server, we're going to say is open.value is equal to true. We're going to add the door to our open doors by saying world save game manager.instance.current character doors opened .add, and we pass our door ID, and we should do a check too to see if this does not contain the ID, so we don't add a bunch of entries. And then we do our open door client RPC. So I'm just going to make sure we're not going to add duplicate entries. Should never come to that, but just to be safe, we're going to say if it does not contain. There we go. Cool. Okay, now on the client RPC, this is where we actually play the open animation. So we're going to say animator.play, and we're going to play the open door animation. And then we're going to play a sound effect, and we're going to disable the interactable collider. And I'm just realizing now that we don't use a sound source manager system in this series. We just have an audio source on every object that requires one. So there's a way we can optimize that in the future. If you want me to cover it, let me know. But basically we generate a sound audio source at the location where the sound effect is required, and then we disable it. That way we're only using one or two audio sources ever. We're just moving them around the scene. But we're just going to add an audio source to this for now and play it from that. I'm going to minimize that. There we go. And then I am going to come over here and we're going to call override interact. And we want to check to see if this door requires a key first. So we're going to say if it requires a key item. And then we're going to also check to make sure the player has the key. So we'll say and the player, player has key. We pass our player. So if this does require a key and we have a key, well, we know we can open it. Otherwise, if it requires a key and we don't have the key, then we know we can't open it. And if none of those situations are applicable and this does not require an item at all, we're just going to skip to these statements and move on to the bottom and simply open the door. So if this requires an item and the player has the item, we're going to open the door via the open door server RPC. And then we're going to remove this interaction from the player's interaction list. And then we're going to say player UI manager.instance, and we can send them a nice message saying that you used the key to open the store, and then we can remove it from inventory. So we're going to say send player message pop-up used space, then we're going to say plus, we're going to say item required to open dot item name plus, and put a period there, just like that. And if you want to remove it from the inventory, we can reference the player by saying player.player inventory, and then we can say, I think we have a remove item from inventory. Yes, we do. I was going to say I'm 99% sure we made that. Cool, perfect. Now, if this requires an item and the player does not have the item, we can simply send them a pop-up saying locked. Or you can even specify what item it needs if you want to. I'm just going to say it's locked. You could say requires blank item name, blah, 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 totally up to you. Now we're going to say return here, and we're going to say return up there, because in the instance where this does not require an item, we're just going to say open door server RPC, and then we're going to remove the interaction from the player's interaction list. So we can say player.player interaction manager.remove interaction from list. Very cool. All right. Now let's save that. That looks good. Now if I go in here and make my door a prefab, and we're going to make sure that it's on our network prefabs, and we're also going to set up our prefab because it's missing some things. So I'm going to drag in my animator like so. I'm going to get my door animations like so. I'm just going to go in the animator and reference one. I know the other one's just the same, but with an extra ED on the end of the open. There we go. And my audio source, let's add one. I'm going to make it so it's 3D by cranking the spatial blend from left all the way to right. And then I'm going to drop this in there like so, and I'm going to go to my random sound effect. I'm just going to add roll for now, and we're going to make the interactable text open. Again, I am checking my default network prefabs, and I can see that yes, it is absolutely there. Now I'm going to go into the prefab, and I'm going to make a collider for the actual interactable portion of this, and I'm going to set the layered interactable. So I'm going to move the collider that requires interaction a bit forward, turn it into a trigger, and you can see here like I want this to be in front of the doors of the players to be reasonably close to it. I can expand it a bit more if I'd like. I think that's totally fine. And that does look good, so I will now save that. I'm going to jump back into the game. You can see, boom, it opens, working as intended. Okay, so if I go back and reload the game, you can see the door is already open. Looks like I'm still getting the interaction pop-up, so let's go check that. I think I know why. Yeah, so if I go back into my prefab, yeah, I actually had the collider in the interactable collider variable and not the actual trigger. So I'm going to drag it in there and fix that. And then if I go back into the scene, it should be fine. Cool. One last thing you want to do, it's easy to miss, is go to your prefab and make sure it is not set to static. Okay guys, on the next one we're going to make it so we can actually set up a cannot open from this side collider. We're going to make sure our key is working, and if you guys want I can cover opening a door via a lever or button as well, just to link it up, kind of similar to how we did multiple versions of the elevator. If you guys weren't aware, I am giving away a bunch of animation sets. You can check out the previous video I posted. It's a little competition running on our demo launch. If you're interested, go ahead and check it out. Thank you as always my patrons for keeping my lights on. Thank you to the people that take the time to share this video, like it, comment, and share it via word of mouth. You have my sincerest appreciation. I will see you guys in the next one.